All right, today we're jumping into one of the biggest questions out there, and we're doing it with a brand new scientific report as our guide. How would we actually know if an AI becomes conscious? Let's get into it.
So this is the question, isn't it? It's on everyone's mind, especially with AI systems getting so powerful they feel, well, almost human. But the real challenge is moving this conversation from sci-fi movies into a place of actual rigorous science.
And really, this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. You can have a conversation with an AI that feels incredibly real, but is there an actual inner world behind those words? Is there something it is like to be that AI, or is it just the most sophisticated parrot we've ever built?
For a long, long time, we've basically relied on looking at behavior. Think of the famous Turing test. If it acts smart, it must be smart. But we've kind of hit a wall with that approach. We're now dealing with what you could call a serious imitation problem.
And listen to this quote from the report we're digging into because it just hits the nail on the head. AI is getting so good at, well, faking it, that our own intuition is becoming a totally unreliable guide. We need something better.
So the new game plan is this. Instead of just watching what the AI does on the outside, we need to pop the hood and see how the engine actually works. The whole focus shifts from its behavior to its internal architecture.
And look, this isn't just some random idea. This whole method is the result of a massive team-up. We're talking neuroscientists who study the human brain, philosophers who've been thinking about consciousness for centuries, and the very AI researchers who are building these incredible systems. A real dream team.
Okay, now, for any of this to even get off the ground, you have to accept one big idea first. It's called computational functionalism. It's a bit of a mouthful, but the concept is simple. What matters for consciousness isn't the stuff it's made of, wet, squishy neurons versus dry silicon chips, but the job that stuff is doing. It's about the function, the computation, not the material.
And this chart just lays out the shift in thinking perfectly. The old way, the behavioral tests, just looks at the final product and asks, does it seem conscious? You can see how that's easy to game, right? The new approach looks under the hood, at the architecture, and asks a much tougher question. Does it actually work like a conscious brain works? That's way harder to fake.
So how in the world do you check if an AI works like a conscious brain? Well, these researchers built a tool for it. It's basically a scientific checklist, a rubric that's pulled directly from what we know about the neuroscience of our own consciousness.
And to be clear, they didn't just pull these ideas out of thin air. They went through decades of brain research, looked at all the major scientific theories of consciousness, and boiled them down into a list of specific, testable features they call indicator properties. And here it is, a little peek at the checklist itself. You might recognize some of these big ideas, like global workspace theory. What's so amazing about this is that it takes these really abstract concepts and turns them into concrete engineering questions. It's literally asking, does the AI have the specific parts and pieces that these theories say are crucial for consciousness in us?
Let's break one of these down to make it super clear. So, global workspace theory says that in our brains, consciousness acts like a central stage, a workspace, where important information gets broadcast out to all the other specialized parts of the brain. So to check this off the list, you'd have to find that same structure in an AI. Is there a bottleneck where information is selected and then broadcast widely? Or how about this one? Higher order theories. The basic idea here is that consciousness involves a kind of self-awareness. The system needs to be able to monitor its own states. So for an AI, you look for signs of that. Does it have a mechanism to know what it knows? Can it tell the difference between a good signal and just internal noise?
And this is the magic trick, right here. This whole thing moves the conversation away from just philosophical debate. Every single item on that checklist points to a real, concrete feature in an AI's design that you can actually look for. It turns an impossible question into a solvable scientific investigation.
Okay, so we've got the method, we've got the checklist. Now for the million-dollar question, what happens when you actually use this thing to grade the AI systems we have right now? The ones we use every day?
Well, the report's conclusion is pretty direct. Based on this very specific, evidence-based rubric, no AI system that we have today is conscious. Full stop.
But let's be really clear about why. It's not that today's AIs have zero of these properties. Some of them actually show little glimmers of individual indicators. But the key thing is, consciousness isn't just about having one or two pieces. It's about how they're all integrated together. And right now, nothing we have comes close to combining enough of them. But and you knew there was a but coming, right? This is where it gets really interesting. The report doesn't just stop there. It goes on to say that even though we're not there yet, there's no law of physics, no fundamental computational reason that would stop us from building an AI that does tick all of these boxes.
And that is just the mind-blowing takeaway from all of this. We don't have a conscious AI today, but for the very first time we have something that looks like a scientific blueprint for one. The road from a non-conscious machine to one that might be, well, that road is starting to come into focus.
Which leaves us staring at a final, massive question. The scientific roadmap is being drawn, so the whole conversation is shifting away from the technical question of can we do this and toward the profound ethical question of should we?